Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome back to my channel. This is Fame with Tiffany Renee. If you are new to this channel, welcome. So glad you came. If you have been here before, welcome back. Thank you all so much. Thank you to all my subscribers, all the likes and the shares and the wonderful comments. I appreciate you all. I hope you're having a lovely New Year so far. I am back. This is the first official video of 2024. We're in a new year. I am a year older. My birthday was 3 weeks ago. So, it's time for some new topics, some new energy, and we're going to get into it. If you are interested in booking an intuitive session with me, or if you want to be part of the intuition workshop that is going on right now, it's 4 weeks. We already finished 1 week. The next week starts on Tuesday, and we meet twice a week for 90 minutes, and we talk about everything that has to do with your intuition and your intuitive voice. Last week was a success. It was wonderful. This is my first workshop ever. People are really having breakthroughs. It is absolutely amazing. So I will leave all that information, my ebooks, everything is all on my website. I will leave it in the description box below. So feel free to check that out at your leisure. Hit the bell icon so that you know every time I upload a new video or make a new post, you can get notified. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And let's get into the video. Okay, this is a topic that I want to talk about because while it is mentioned by a few of the manifestation coaches and other spiritual coaches that you may have found on YouTube, or even people in your own life, in your own community, I want to talk about this because it's happened to me a lot during my own personal journey to growth and expansion. I mentioned it a little bit in my video about expansion. I think it's called Embrace Your Expansion. It's on my channel. You can check that out if you want to watch that video. But for the last 2 years specifically, I have been experiencing isolation. And I want to talk about that. That's what this video is about today. If you're on your spiritual journey, or you're transforming, shedding the old version of you and going into the new version of you, or, if you're feeling differently, if your life circumstances are changing, if you're changing mentally and emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and you notice that things in your environment are drastically changing, specifically the people in your life, and you all of a sudden start seeing that maybe relationships are being severed, breakups are happening, suddenly your spouse wants a divorce, like out of nowhere, or, maybe, in my case, friendships who you've had for decades, just like that, dissolve. And it makes no sense whatsoever. And you notice your circle is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And maybe you're not as engaged anymore in certain activities that you used to be engaged in, or certain communities, or certain things like that. Maybe you don't go out as much anymore. And it's not that anyone's done anything to you. It's just all of a sudden you are feeling just an unexplainable sense to withdraw from outside, or your thoughts and your beliefs. Maybe you've been studying things and learning things on your path, and you're losing the alignment to certain people and things and behaviors and circumstances that you used to be very much in vibrational alignment with, and you're no longer in vibrational alignment with those things. And all of a sudden they start falling away, or you just naturally start distancing yourself, and you're not even really sure why. You just have this feeling that, I think that part of me, I think I'm done doing this thing. And you can feel yourself kind of being moved to do other things, different types of behaviors, or developing different patterns, or wanting to hang out with different types of people, or not wanting to hang out with anyone at all. I want to talk about that because there are times when sometimes you just feel like you're alone. And I can only speak from my personal experience, okay? So, I can't speak on anyone else's but my own. But hopefully, my experience resonates with you all. And if you have had similar experiences, please drop them in the comments and, let me know how you dealt with it and where you are in your life right now because of it. So, my biggest isolation started, I want to say maybe around 2016, when I just kind of did like a big surrender to everything, because I learned about law of attraction back in 2012. And I was at rock bottom. Anyway, I was completely starting over in my life. And so I was really open, to new information, especially information I had never heard of before. So I started, getting into The Secret, which was introduced to me. And, over those first 4 years, I was kind of dabbling in the manifestation thing, not knowing at the time that every waking moment of your existence you're manifesting. Like, it's not something that you can kind of pick and choose to do. You're doing it regardless whether you want to do it or not. You're always calling something in to your reality. Now, deliberate manifestation is when you are consciously aware of the things that you want to call in, and you deliberately, consciously hone your energy and your attention to that thing that you want so that it materializes, right? You collapse all the other quantum possibilities so you can have that one thing, and then it comes into your life. But I didn't know any of that at the time. So I would have manifestations, if I focused or if I let go of resistance or whatever, things would show up. And I'd be like, whoa, this stuff really works. But I was very much involved, with the person who introduced it to me. And I started sharing it with other people. And in like 2013-ish, someone who I worked with, who I was very, very good friends with, I, talked to her about manifestation because she didn't really know about it. I introduced her to The Secret. She manifested her house, and she manifested all these amazing things. And out of nowhere, like, we became really close. Like, we were both like 80s junkies, and we just, because I'm an 80s kid, and we were both all about the old school music, all of that. Okay. We vibed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I found a new friend who is like me. Okay. Which I cherished and relished because, I'm an African American from Ohio who grew up in the Middle East and came back when she was 16 years old and had to start high school. So I already felt isolated because I stuck out like a sore thumb, and people didn't really know how to respond to me because my differences were so Eastern based and very, very different from the Western based belief systems. So I felt alone a lot, just because I don't think people really knew how to talk to me or how to connect with me, because there was such a massive disconnect, like, culturally. So anytime I would find somebody who was vibing with me and liked the things that I liked, I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta hold on to you. You know what I'm saying? So, out of nowhere, like, literally one day, like, we were social media friends, and then one day I noticed that she wasn't my friend anymore. And I thought, well, that's odd. And so I, had called her. She didn't answer. And then I called her one other time, like a second time after that, and she still didn't answer. And she didn't return my calls, which was very unlike her. And she didn't answer my voicemail either. So I just left her a message like, you know what? I guess whatever you're dealing with, or whatever you're going through, I guess you just don't want to talk to me anymore. And I'm going to respect your right to do that, even though I have no idea why. Because we had a really good relationship where we could always be open and talk to each other. So if there was an issue, I'm sure you would have brought it to my attention. But the fact that you didn't, and you just completely shut me out with no explanation whatsoever, I'm hurt, but hey, I'm going to respect your right to do that. And I'm not going to bother you anymore. And I didn't. And I didn't hear from her or see her ever again until, I don't want to say ever again, but it was several years. It was some years later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, I ran into her at a concert. And she saw me and she gave me a hug and was like, hey, I knew you'd be here. And it was interesting because we hadn't seen each other or spoken a word to each other in like 4 or 5 years. And I saw her at this concert, and then she was like, okay, well, take care. And I love your outfit. And she got in the elevator, and I didn't see her again. I literally have not seen her again since then. We have a mutual friend, and every once in a while, that mutual friend will talk to her. And every now and then I'll ask, oh, how's she doing? And oh, she's doing good. And every now and then she'll tell me, oh, so-and-so asked about you. But nobody knows why. Like, at least this mutual friend of ours has no idea. Didn't even know that she and I weren't speaking anymore. And so I definitely felt like my initial reaction was, well, did I say something? Did I do something? And I was really racking my brain trying to figure it out. And I realized, as far as I know, I didn't do anything. Because if it was something that was bad, when she saw me at the concert, she wouldn't have spoken to me. She wouldn't have come to me and gave me a hug. She wouldn't still ask about me every now and then. So I'm like, well, maybe I must not have really done necessarily anything horrible to her. But after time passed, I realized, you know what? There was a purpose for me to be in her life. And once I completed that task, which could very well have just been introducing her to manifestation, there was no purpose for me in her life anymore. And so I was just abruptly removed. and vice versa. Maybe, she had a purpose in my life, and that purpose was filled. And we were no longer needed in each other's lives anymore. We fulfilled our purpose, and it was over. So I took that. I just took it as it was. I said, okay, well, that's that. And then if I continue to fast forward, as I continue to grow on my journey, I realized, well, maybe where I'm going, maybe we would have fell out of vibrational alignment. So the alignment was severed early. I'm like, that's a possibility. So I continue to read and learn and try to evolve in my own way. And I've shifted into so many different versions of myself over the last 15, 20 years. But that was definitely a wake-up call for me because I had to grieve that friendship because it was so abrupt. But I was aware that, okay, there has to be a reason. There has to be a good reason for this. Another friend of mine from college, almost 20 years we've known each other. It wasn't until just maybe 2 years ago now that I realized, like really realized, like I think I had thoughts about it, but I used to think those were just intrusive thoughts. But I really realized, okay, I'm evolving and I'm changing, and I'm now seeing things that I used to think was okay. I recognized that I was being mistreated, where all those other times, like for all those years, I tried to call it something else. I tried to say, oh, this is just how this person is. It's just, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I realized something happened, and it just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like my intuition was like, bam. Like, girl, she can't come with you. Like, you're evolving, you're changing, you are out of vibrational alignment with this person. You're going to have to send them away with love. So instead of doing that, I wanted to just start fresh because I realized we had a very, very toxic friendship. And yeah, I allowed to be treated in certain ways that, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was not okay. Some of the things that, this person used to say to me and take jabs at me, but yet it's like, oh, but you sister, you my sis. It's that, you know what I mean? And so I just kept chalking it up to, well, that's just how they are. They're just their personality. We just have differences. We were just raised differently. I made all of these excuses. Cognitive dissonance was jumping in real hard, trying to justify this person's behavior until I was like, no, this is unacceptable. Okay. I was 39, about to turn 40, and I was like, this is unacceptable. I can't deal with this anymore because this is not okay. And it probably was never okay when I actually stopped to think about it. So I wrote this person a letter, heartfelt letter, letting them know this is your pattern of behavior towards me. This is the dynamic of our friendship. It was built on toxicity, and it was built on very much trauma response. And I agreed to so many things just from a place of trauma. And I was like, this isn't okay. It's never been okay. And it's taken me 19 years to realize that it's not okay. And I want us to start fresh because I do love you as a person. Like we've been knowing each other since we were kids, since we were in college, you know. I don't want our friendship to die like this. I think we can repair it. We just have to start over. And there are new boundaries that have to be in place here. If we're going to be friends, there's a certain level of respect that you have to provide me because I am no longer the 20-year-old who you met. I'm no longer that freshman anymore. And I haven't been for years. I'm a very much a different person and I'm at a different place in my life. And I require a different level of peace and a different type of maturity. And there are just certain things that I need from someone who I'm going to place a label as friend. And you were not really providing that, and you were not providing it in a healthy way. So can we start over? Talk to me, like call me, talk to me, and we can discuss how to kind of rebuild our friendship from the ground up with a more healthy foundation. This person called me and just went clean off on me. Was yelling and screaming. I was all kinds of, yeah, it just went so bad, simply because I decided to set boundaries. Well, needless to say, the next day, that person called me again, you know, carrying on again. And I went to the doctor and I sat in the parking lot for a second and I was incredibly upset, like anxiety through the roof. I just couldn't believe I was being bawled out like that just because I dared to request someone treat me the way I choose to be treated because I asked someone to meet me where I currently am right at that moment. It's like, don't continue to meet me how you, based on the first impression you got of me 20 years ago. Meet me where I am now. Address me how I am now. Talk to me based on the person who I am now. That's all I'm asking you to do. When you see me grow, meet me at my growth. Treat me according to my growth that you see, that you've acknowledged. Meet me there. That was not an option. And so, you know, we had a mutual friend and, you know, she couldn't believe it either. Like it was really upsetting. And so I made a decision, like, you know, I'm just going to send a text message and just say, you know what, I wish you nothing but love and success, but I think we should go our separate ways. And I just removed that person from my life completely, removed them from my life. Haven't spoken to them, haven't seen them, haven't nothing in about 2 years. So I had to grieve that. And I was like, man, what is going on? Because prior to that, just the summer of 2021, one of my best friends from high school, she suddenly died. And so I was like, really, God, like, I feel like I'm losing my friends, you know, like what is happening, you know? And I can see in hindsight that that was a good decision to make because again, where I am today would not be in vibrational alignment to this person. You know what I mean? Unless that person was to grow and elevate and we get back into vibrational alignment, it would be a pointless relationship to have and to continue to fight for. So, yeah, I started to feel a little bit isolated because I felt like people around me are just kind of dissipating. And, even, certain family, I started just like, okay, we're not gelling, we're not vibing, the alignment is off. So there has been more space put between certain family members. And I did start to kind of feel more alone. Um, Other friends that I've had, maybe that I used to be able to talk to regularly, you know, life is life in for them, and they're doing life, they're working, they're in relationships, they're parents, and they're all that type of stuff. So I'm not talking to them as often. The communication isn't there, and it's like once again I'm feeling more and more alone, and I'm still studying, still elevating, still trying to understand everything about quantum physics, metaphysics. I'm just doing all this stuff. And then I realized not everybody's into that. Not everybody is into that. And I have to be okay with the fact that not everybody who I'm going to meet is going to be into that. So I can't talk to everybody, anybody about that, which is like my favorite thing to talk about. Okay. Next to concerts and like, music and stuff like that. I love talking about metaphysics. I love talking about quantum physics. I love talking about the universal laws and energy and vibration and just learning more and more stuff about it. That is my cup of tea now. It didn't used to be. Like I grew into this. I grew into becoming this person. But while I'm growing into becoming this person, I'm noticing it feels like I'm losing so many people around me. I'm I'm becoming more and more isolated. It's becoming like it's shrinking. My circle is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And not only is the circle shrinking, but the communication is not what it used to be. The communication is lessening. I'm talking to people less. I'm seeing people less. I'm hanging out with people less. I'm being invited to places less. And if I am invited, I don't want to go. You know what I mean? And so I started doing things on my own. Like I really, really started throwing myself into doing things on my own. And I mean, let's talk about it. The pandemic, it was isolating for everybody. Like we were in quarantine for months at a time, depending on where you lived. Okay. And just being in quarantine and having to isolate from each other, isolating from your friends, from your family, from your job, and, just from going to your favorite bar, going to your favorite restaurants, so many people having to be alone that either served you or you kind of like, it freaked you out. Like I literally know people who developed depression because they could not be out and about and do things. Being alone and being isolated made them depressed, like severely depressed. And it's like, I don't know who I am without being around people. I like the noise. I like the chatter. People were forced to sit with themselves. People were forced to be still and go into their own silence, and sometimes being alone with your own thoughts can be very, very frightening, which is why we distract ourselves so much so we don't have to hear what's going on, because then we're going to have to deal with it. Because if you're alone long enough, all those issues that you've been burying, that's been suppressing, it's going to start to come up because you have nothing but time and self now. I loved it. I'm going to be honest. I loved being isolated like that because it gave me time where I didn't have a job to go to. And I was okay. Like fortunately my state provided resources for us, and you didn't have to pay rent, no one was getting evicted, and internet cable, and you didn't have to pay bills. You were on like these emergency programs and stuff like that. And Amazon was still delivering, so they would deliver groceries and, stuff like that. So I was okay. I was okay, blessed. You know what I mean? And a lot of people I know were okay. We were just kind of writing it out to see what was going to happen. But I did not fear being alone. I was okay with it because I had already started doing things alone. Like people had already started to kind of fall away, had already started going and being in this isolated bubble. It had already started happening. I was traveling alone. I was going to concerts alone starting in 2019. I was always in the front row, backstage, VIP. I was painting. I was doing all this stuff, and I was doing it by myself. I would go shopping alone. I would go out to eat alone. I go to the movies by myself. I just started doing things alone. And so I really, really got comfortable with being in my own company. I wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. But as things opened up and we were out, able to get out and about again, I went to more concerts by myself. I went to, I just kept doing things by myself. And again, I enjoyed it. I mean, I did hang out with some of my friends, but even when I did, I only kind of wanted to be around one or two at a time. I would go to a concert, have a great time, and then come back and just not want to be around anybody for like 2 days. Because I just started to feel overstimulated by being around so many people. And then just recently, just 2 months ago, another friend of mine of almost 20 years, who, I just never saw this coming. And I'm sure maybe there were signs that I was maybe ignoring. But, something, happened to me. Like I'm in this like weird transition situation. But I was telling her, I had called to tell her about it because I hadn't spoken to her in like a week, and then I checked on her, and she was just kind of doing her own thing, kind of getting her thoughts together, and I didn't hear from her for another week, and so I reached out to her again, and then all of a sudden, she tells me she's on her own spiritual walk, and that God's telling her that she needs to isolate herself from everybody, and they were like a list of people who she needed to isolate herself from, and she said I was one of them. This came out of nowhere, okay? She literally said to me, basically, God told her that she needed to cut me out of her life because I, like, served the devil or something like that. Like, I'm laughing at the disbelief of it because I can't, I'm still in disbelief. That's why I'm laughing. And obviously, you all don't know her, but just because I know her, and just 2 weeks prior to that, to her saying that, she was just praising me for my faith and saying how I love how, you're so faithful, and, you've got this stuff going on and you're still living your life. You're not letting it rattle you. You do your studying and you study your manifestation stuff, and, you're working on your spirituality. And I love it. You're doing so good. And literally 2 weeks later, literally, she tells me, yeah, I can't talk to you anymore because, you serve a different master. And she was implying that I serve Satan. Like she said, God told her that. And so therefore, she can't be my friend anymore. And that's not really the part that behooves me. What really behooves me is that ironically, a family member very, very close to her told her the exact same thing when they felt that they were being called to isolate themselves. They were like, yeah, and God told me I need to isolate myself from you. And she was distraught. Like it pretty much shattered her. Like, and she was like, oh no, I reject that. God would never tell you to isolate yourself from me. That's the devil, blah, blah, blah. She couldn't receive that. So the same thing that she was told, she said that exact same thing to me. Just a couple months later. She was told that in the summer. In November, she said it to me. The exact same thing. And it's like, what? And this is not the first time. It's like the second time in like a 10-year period, because she said something similar to me 10 years ago. And then she kind of, I guess, apologized. But Didn't apologize for saying it. She gaslit me and told me, well, if you felt some kind of way for me saying that, it's because your faith isn't strong enough. It was that. So there were signs, I'm sure, for years that maybe our vibrational alignment wasn't what I was hoping it was, or what I was maybe trying to force it into being. So once again, lost that friend. And so this was just 2 months ago. And so I wanted to make this video about isolating. I know I've just kind of been telling you a lot of stories, but I'm trying to hopefully drive home this point that sometimes these isolations will happen and they make no sense. They make no sense whatsoever. And personally, my personal experience, I've never experienced, like, similar to what, this lady said, this former friend, when she said, God told me that I need to isolate myself for my own personal salvation or growth or whatever. And these are the things and people that I need to cut out of my life. That has never happened to me. I can honestly say I've never had it where I could say, okay, God told me that I need to stop dealing with y'all, or that. It's never been that for me. I'm going about life. I'm doing what I'm doing. And I may have a slight intuitive nudge that might say, okay, this vibration is a little off, based on this circumstance or that circumstance. And then it would go away. And then something, I guess if they really need to be removed from my life, something would be introduced to me that would shift the dynamic of it. It's almost like they would be plucked out of my life for me. And it would be abruptly. It wouldn't make any sense. Like the first one with the first friend, it didn't make any sense. We were good. We were good. And then all of a sudden, one night, boom, I don't hear from you anymore. We're not friends. We're not social media friends. Nothing. Just plucked right out of my life. The college friend, yes, we had a toxic relationship, but I kind of didn't expect us to just not ever be in each other's lives anymore. So by me doing what friends do, communicating my feelings, I did not expect to get that type of a response. Do you see what I mean? From her, I didn't expect to get bawled out. And so therefore, by me being bawled out as a response to me just sharing my emotions, it was like, okay, she's plucked out. It was a no-brainer. You can't stay in my life. And then just the most recent friend, from 20 years as well, just 2 months ago, telling me out of the blue, okay, when I tell you that literally right before this, she was praising me. Like, you, my sister, you this and this and this. I'm so proud of you. You doing this, you being blessed, blah, 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 woo, woo, woo. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Literally 2 weeks later, 2 weeks of silence, of her not communicating with me. I have to call her, and she reluctantly told me, okay, this is what it is. God told me I can't deal with you no more because our beliefs are too different, and we serve two different masters. And I know I'm on the side of the light and you're on the dark and whatever. And I'm like, so you're implying that I worship the devil? And she's like, no, I'm not implying anything, but you are. That's 100% what you're implying. And like, where is this coming from? Like, I don't even understand this. Again, made no sense. There's another friend plucked out my life. You know what I mean? Made no sense whatsoever. No sense. So in my personal experience, the circle keeps shrinking. It keeps getting smaller and smaller. And yes, it can be lonely sometimes. Like my communities are online. My manifestation communities are online because sometimes I feel like they're the ones that get me the most, and this is their thing. They love talking about metaphysics and quantum physics, and they're studying and reading just as much as I am. So I feel like there's a connection there. I do think community is important. A lot of people do put a lot of emphasis on um, interaction communities. Like if you have groups or if you have like a religious belief and you like, go to church, you go to a mosque, you go to a synagogue, whatever, and you fellowship in person. I mean, I do that. I'm part of a neighborhood association, so we have our meetings, and once a month, and I do that. I'm a part of that. But really, aside from that, no, I just do stuff on my own because I've gotten so used to being isolated. I've gotten so used to this growth of mine, this journey, creating so much space for me that it seems to be eliminating a lot of other things in my life. And sometimes I do feel a little bit alone in this. There are times when I am just kind of sitting like, oh, dang, like, where is everybody? You know what I'm saying? Like genuine friends, like who I talk to like regularly and all that stuff. I literally, I can count on one finger. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I can count on one hand how many I have left. Because everyone else has just kind of been. And so, I'm just going to take it as, okay, whoever's left is who's meant to still be here while I'm on my journey. And who are continuing to contribute to my growth and who are pouring into me as I pour into them. So, all of this to say that it can be scary, it can feel lonely. Sometimes the road to transformation, it can be a complex one. Sometimes you will feel like you're completely alone and you're completely isolated and there's no one around and you've lost family, you've lost friends, no one gets you, no one understands you except for a handful of people, and the communication may not always be there, and you may spend a lot of time alone, a lot of time in contemplation. It can be uncomfortable if you're not used to that, but instead of pushing against it, embrace it. Instead of condemning it and judging it, embrace it and bless it, because it's happening for a reason. Like there is something vibrationally going on. Either your vibration is rising and you're just no longer in vibrational alignment to other people. And even if it may come as a shock to you, the people who you're not in vibrational alignment with anymore. It could be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a spouse, a friend, co-workers. It could be a job. You know what I mean? It could be certain habits, behaviors, TV shows, food, whatever. You'll just kind of naturally start gravitating out of it, or it will be plucked out for you if you're not getting it. Right? So don't fear it. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. As I've been on this journey, I have met other people. I've lost people and I've gained people. So, I've been really trying to look at it from the perspective of it's not what I have lost. It's about what I am gaining from this loss. I grieve my relationships. I grieve the friendships because they were a part of me for so long. And now it's left room for other people who are more of a vibrational match to me to come in. And it's also left room for me to continue to grow in a safe space and really sit with myself and appreciate the silence. So I can hear my intuition more, so I can hear the divine voice more and continue to grow and elevate and become the best version of myself that I possibly can be, to shine not only for me, but to shine for those around me and in my entire world. So I hope this resonates with somebody. If you felt like you're elevating and you're growing and everybody's falling away from you, and it seems like your world is crumbling, it's probably because you're elevating. I mean, my world is completely falling apart. I'm starting over, like from scratch, like completely. And I'm like, okay, so this is a serious tower moment, but I have to look at it as this is happening because nothing that was there is in vibrational alignment to where I'm going anymore. I'm just going to decide that I'm elevating, my frequency is rising, and everything that is not in vibrational frequency to where I am right now, it's being left behind. It's being fallen. It's falling away. It's being pulled out, pushed out, removed, consciously or unconsciously, whether I'm ready for it or not. It's happening. And so, that's how energy works. So, thank you so much for sitting and chatting with me. I appreciate you so much. And remember, you're not alone. I'm here for you. Okay? We're here. Okay? And love you all. Like, share, subscribe, and click on the link below if you want to work with me. Take care. Until the next video, I will see you soon. Bye.